Imagine waking up one morning, checking your bank account, and realizing the payment you were counting on hasn't arrived. Your bills don't stop, your rent doesn't pause, your grocery store doesn't say, "Pay us later." But the government? It might shut down. And if that happens on February 25th, the impact won't be some distant headline in Washington. It could land right in your living room, at your kitchen table, and inside your wallet. This isn't just about politicians arguing on television. This is about your paycheck if you work for the federal government. It's about your tax refund if you're waiting for it. It's about travel delays, slower services, and uncertainty that creeps into everyday life. Shutdowns create confusion, and confusion creates stress. And when stress hits American families, it spreads fast. Over the last few months, Washington has been locked in repeated budget battles. Funding deadlines have come and gone. Deals have been made at the last minute, and now another deadline is approaching. February 25th could become the next flashpoint in a long series of funding fights. So the real question is simple. What happens to you if the government shuts down again? What keeps running? What stops? And how should you prepare? Because the truth is, the closer this deadline gets, the more uncertainty grows. And if no deal is reached, millions of Americans could feel the impact in ways they never expected. Stay with me, because what happens next could directly affect your money, your travel, your taxes, and your family's financial stability. Why February 25 is suddenly so important. To understand why February 25 matters, you have to look at what's been happening behind the scenes in Washington. The federal government doesn't run on automatic funding. Congress has to approve spending bills to keep agencies operating. If lawmakers can't agree, the money stops. And when the money stops, parts of the government shut down. In early 2026, the country already experienced a short, partial shutdown after a funding deadline passed without a deal. That shutdown only lasted a few days before lawmakers passed a temporary fix. But here's the problem. That fix wasn't permanent. It only bought time. Lawmakers approved funding for most agencies, but one major area, the Department of Homeland Security, received only short-term funding because of a bitter political dispute. That temporary funding created a new deadline, and now that deadline is approaching fast. If Congress doesn't reach another agreement, funding for that department could expire again. And when funding expires, shutdown procedures can begin almost immediately. This is why February 25 is being watched so closely. It's not just another date on the calendar. It's the next possible breaking point. And here's what makes it even more concerning. This isn't the first shutdown fight this fiscal year. There was already a long shutdown in late 2025 that lasted more than a month and cost the economy billions. So Americans aren't just facing a theoretical risk. They're facing a repeat of something that already caused real damage. That's why this deadline matters. Because if Washington doesn't act, the impact won't stay inside the Capitol. It will move straight into your daily life. What a government shutdown actually means. When you hear the words government shutdown, it can sound confusing or even abstract. But the reality is very simple. When funding expires, federal agencies that rely on that money must stop many of their operations. That means some employees are furloughed. Others are forced to work without pay. Services slow down, phone lines go unanswered, offices close, and the ripple effects spread across the country. During recent shutdown planning, thousands of federal workers faced furloughs, and critical employees had to continue working without paychecks until funding returned. That creates stress not just for those workers, but for the communities that depend on their services. Some parts of the government keep running because they're funded differently. For example, Social Security payments usually continue because they come from dedicated trust funds, but other services can slow down or stop entirely. The IRS, for example, can face major disruptions during shutdowns, especially during tax season. Refunds may be delayed, and taxpayer assistance centers can close. That's a direct hit to millions of households expecting money back. Air travel can also feel the impact. Even if flights continue, workers like air traffic controllers may be required to work without pay, which increases stress across the system. So a shutdown isn't just a political event, it's a chain reaction. And once it starts, the effects can reach your bank account, your travel plans, your tax refund, and even the services your family depends on every day. Why lawmakers can't agree at the heart of this shutdown threat is a deep political disagreement, and it isn't just about numbers on a budget sheet. It's about policy, priorities, and control. The main dispute right now centers around immigration enforcement and funding for agencies inside the Department of Homeland Security. Some lawmakers want strict enforcement and full funding. Others want reforms and restrictions before approving more money. This disagreement has become so intense that it already caused a short shutdown earlier this year. And now, with the temporary funding running out, the same fight is back on the table. Negotiations have been slow. Lawmakers are split. And the closer the deadline gets, the more pressure builds. In Washington, shutdown threats are often used as leverage. Each side hopes the other will give in before the clock runs out. But sometimes, neither side moves. And when that happens, the government shuts down whether anyone wants it to or not. The danger for everyday Americans is that these political fights don't stay in Washington. They spill into the real world, and when they do, it's not politicians who feel the first impact. It's families, workers, and businesses. Who gets hit first? If a shutdown happens, some Americans will feel it immediately. Federal employees are usually the first to be affected. Hundreds of thousands of workers could be furloughed or forced to work without pay until funding is restored. That means no paycheck, no certainty, and a lot of anxiety. But the impact doesn't stop there. Contractors who work with the federal government often don't receive back pay after a shutdown. So when the government stops, their income can disappear completely. Small businesses that rely on federal contracts can also struggle. If payments are delayed, their cash flow suffers. And when cash flow suffers, jobs can be at risk. Then come the ripple effects. Restaurants near federal buildings see fewer customers. Travel slows. Local economies feel the pressure. And suddenly, a political fight in Washington turns into a financial problem for thousands of families across the country. What happens to Social Security, SSI, and VA benefits? Now here's the question millions of Americans are asking. What happens to Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits if the government shuts down? In most shutdown scenarios, Social Security and Medicare payments continue. That's because they're funded through dedicated trust funds rather than annual appropriations. So for many retirees, monthly checks still arrive. But that doesn't mean everything runs smoothly. Customer service can slow down. Phone lines may have longer wait times. Offices may operate with reduced staff. And if you need help with a claim, appeal, or update, it could take longer. Veterans' benefits are usually protected as well, especially if they've already been funded in advance. But administrative services can still slow down. So while the checks may keep coming, the support systems behind them may feel the strain. The tax refund question. Everyone's asking. If you're counting on your tax refund, this is where things get serious. During shutdown planning, the IRS warned that refunds might not be issued while the government is shut down. That means millions of Americans could be left waiting for money they were expecting. For many families, that refund isn't just extra cash. It's rent, it's car repairs, it's credit card payments, it's groceries. And when refunds are delayed, financial stress spreads quickly. Even after a shutdown ends, backlogs can take time to clear. So the delay doesn't just last a few days. It can stretch into weeks. That's why this issue matters so much right now, because February and March are peak tax filing season, and a shutdown during this time hits Americans exactly where it hurts the most, their wallets. Travel, airports, and daily life. If you have travel plans, a shutdown could affect those too. Airport security officers and air traffic controllers are considered essential workers. That means they still have to show up for work, even if they're not getting paid. But when workers are under financial stress, the system can feel the strain. In past shutdowns, airports saw longer lines, staffing shortages, and increased delays. National parks may close or operate with limited services. Passport processing can slow down. Government offices may reduce hours. So even if you don't work for the government, your daily life can still be affected. That's the hidden cost of shutdowns. They don't just impact federal employees, they ripple out into travel, services, and the economy. The economic impact. Most people don't see. Shutdowns don't just hurt individuals, they hurt the entire economy. In past shutdowns, billions of dollars in economic output were lost. And some of that money never comes back. When federal workers stop spending, businesses lose customers. When contracts pause, companies lose revenue. When uncertainty rises, markets react. Even short shutdowns can have lasting effects, and longer ones can slow economic growth across the country. So while a shutdown may sound like a political event, it's actually an economic shockwave that spreads across industries, and those shockwaves eventually reach everyday households. So here's the truth. February 25th isn't just another political deadline. It's a financial turning point that could affect millions of Americans. If lawmakers reach a deal, life continues as normal. If they don't, the shutdown clock starts ticking again. And when that happens, the effects move fast, from federal workers to contractors, from tax refunds to travel, from Washington all the way to your wallet. So what should you do? Stay informed. Watch the deadlines. And if you're expecting a refund or rely on federal services, prepare for possible delays, because in Washington, deals often happen at the last minute. But sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it's not politicians who feel the first impact. It's you, your family, and your finances. This is one of those moments where staying informed could protect your money, your plans, and your peace of mind. So make sure you're following the updates, because what happens next could directly affect your financial future, and the next deadline is closer than you think.